Mr. Quinn's recognized to explain amendment number 1.
Mr. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen of the House, what is before you is the committee amendment that has been often referred to lately as Emma's Law. And just to give you a little bit of my personal involvement in this, I go to Saxgotha Presbyterian Church in Lexington. I'm going to try it. It's going to be very difficult for me to keep my emotions in check, if you pardon me. But one Sunday morning after New Year's Eve, a huge explosive crash happened right in front of our church. And little Emma Longstreet was going to church with her family and was taken from us by a drunk driver who had multiple offenses. And that tragedy, and the Longstreets are in the auditorium here in the balcony, caused me to become involved in what I consider to be one of the more important bills I've ever dealt with in my career. And that tragedy and others are happening in the state every day. We had also recently a friend of mine, and James Smith, Fire Chief Jenkins, lost his grandnephew of 3 years old to a drunk driver who had been arrested 7 times for drunk driving. That journey caused the Longstreets particularly to raise this issue of having an interlock device on your car after first offense. That debate started at a point in the Senate where the bill was much tougher than what I bring before you today. The Senate was eventually able to pass .12 as the standard for when you have an interlock device applied to your car for the first offense. During the process, I stand before you as somebody who would be for .08, and I would be for it on an administrative level. If you blow that as a drunk driver, I would want that interlock device to go on your car regardless of whether there had been a conviction. But what has happened is folks like me on one end of the spectrum met folks on the other side of the spectrum to try and accomplish a bill and get a bill through both chambers in the waning days of this session. Here we sit in April. So we've compromised to try to bring this bill and save some lives. And just very quickly, I want to just tell you a couple statistics. And I know you all are getting a lot of emails, and we're all very conscientious members, and I'm sure you've read through a lot of this. But all you have to do is look at the CDC's website and put the interlock device in and search it. You'll see, hands down, there is no debate. The use of the interlock device on first offense saves lives. And if you look at what's happened in other states, it's ranged from 38% to 40% in terms of a reduction of recidivism in the first offense. Right now we sit in this country, there are 36 states that have an interlock device laws. 21 of them are first offense, and this bill would bring South Carolina to making 22 states. I ask that you help us. I'm sure that there may be other amendments that are proposed. If I had my wish and I was emperor of the state, I would do something very different. But here we sit. This is our best chance to get a bill that would save lives. I've spoke with Senator Lurie, who was the champion of this bill in the Senate, and quite frankly, when we first started this fight, we always thought the Senate would be the more difficult body to get this bill through. But Senator Lurie and others, working with the Longstreets, pulled off a miracle and got that bill out of the Senate. We all agree that the best we can do is what's before you. And so what I'm asking is that you adopt this committee amendment and really hold it where it is. And there may be other meritorious ideas that are offered, there may not be. But what I would ask is let's keep this bill clean, get it to the Senate, give Senator Lurie a chance to maybe get this bill to the governor's desk next week and turn what is probably one of the greatest tragedies I've ever personally witnessed into a good thing for the state and save some lives, save some children's lives. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. If there's any questions.
Mr. Skelton's recognized for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As I understand it, it is a .15. So if anyone is arrested for DUI and convicted with a .14, they wouldn't have to have the interlock.
That's accurate. It's an option for the judge and it could be used, but under this provision, under this amendment, it would be mandatory at .15 or greater.
Well, did you know that I favor the interlock device for people that are convicted, regardless? Is there anything that was considered or could be considered with respect to the fact that, which I consider to be one of the travesties of the judicial system, where senators appoint magistrates and then DUI cases are presented to magistrates and, well, you know the consequences of that. But nothing of that sort was considered in any of the deliberation, was it?
No, sir. You know, one of the things that's occurred, you know, that I've noticed, and I had a very heartfelt discussion with Senator Lurie about this. You know, we both wanted a lot more, but I think here we sit at the end of a 2-year session. If we don't get something done and get it to the desk of the governor before the first week in June, as you know, we have to start this process all over again. And quite frankly, the momentum we have, we just felt like we had to go, this is the best we could do and not risk losing the bill altogether.
Well, I want to vote on it before I leave here. Let me raise one other question. Do I understand correctly that the interlock device costs approximately $130 a month?
Yeah, I believe that's accurate. I think there's really two providers, but that's kind of the average pricing as I understand it.
And is that leased or is that owned by, what is the situation?
I believe there's an installation fee and then a monthly charge, after which you give the device back.
Okay. And suppose I got caught reading .15, and suppose I were a lot younger than I am, would that be forever, or is there a termination date on when you wouldn't have to have an interlock?
Well, it's based on offenses. So your first offense would be 6 months.
Only
Yes,
6
sir.
months?
Yes, sir. And then of course there's a point system. So if a person has an interlock device because they blew .15 or higher or convicted, then there's a point system that kicks in where if they try to start the car or if they do other things that are in violation of the agreement they have to put the device on their car, points go up and their suspension would go up depending on how many points they score. 4 points would get you another 6 months.
Okay, so it's not a permanent situation forever?
No, sir.
Okay. You've satisfied the questions I have. I thank you and the committee for the effort that you put into this. It's a good bill.
Well, I really appreciate that. You know, one of the, you know, a lot of folks have said, well, why was .15 an issue? Well, you know, from my view, why I finally decided to support it, even though I wanted much tougher, about 70% of the fatalities are in this level. So in my mind, we're giving ourselves a shot at saving, you know, 70% of those folks we lose every year.
Mr. Loftus recognized for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Representative Quinn, I have a question just for information. I know some things were discussed about a driver who has been convicted driving another vehicle other than his own. If these are required on his vehicle, is there any penalty for that person if they're driving another car, whether it's a traffic stop or maybe
yes.
they're caught for what are those?
Yeah, he's asking. If somebody driving a car, they lose the whole privilege to drive. Yeah, they lose their privilege altogether. I wanted to make sure the committee amendment didn't so their privilege to drive is eliminated.
If they're caught driving a vehicle without that on it?
That's right.
Okay.
And one of the other things that's interesting about this whole issue, you know, about 70% of the drivers whose licenses are suspended will keep driving on the suspended license. So that's one of the reasons why an interlock device is going to give us a better shot at maybe saving some lives and preventing them from getting behind the wheel. It's much better than just a straight-up suspension.
Will that show up on their driver's license?
Yes.
I mean, if they got stopped at a traffic stop, it would show up on their driver's
Correct.
license. Okay.
Their license has a interlock symbol on it that's given so the policeman knows that they should be driving an interlock car.
Mr. Pitts is recognized for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Representative Quinn, who would actually supervise these locks being put on?
Triple P, probation, pardon, and parole.
Okay. And who is responsible for checking and maintaining those? Triple P also?
They are, but I believe the manufacturers are the ones that actually administer it under the guidance of the probation, pardon, and parole agency.
Okay. I want to give you a for instance question, and if a family member is convicted and blows .15 and they do not own a vehicle, how would we approach that with this particular law? Would it affect other family members' vehicles or just the individual that's convicted?
It's my understanding that the way this would work is that the car that the person who's convicted would have to have the interlock device on that car. And it's also my understanding that you can have it on multiple cars if you wish, so you could accommodate different circumstances.
One last question, Representative Quinn. If with this particular program and once it's in place, if those individuals have they have multiple convictions, can you elaborate on what those, how those penalties increase and as they move forward?
And I want to make sure Emma's listening to me so I don't mess this up. The first offense is 6 months.
Mr. Quinn, I'm afraid your time on the amendment has expired. Mr. Quinn is recognized for a second time on the amendment.
It says 6 months.
6 months.
Yeah. Yeah. It's for the first offense it's 6 months. The second offense is 2 years, and the third offense is 4 years. That's what I'm right. The third offense is 4 years, and then the fourth offense is permanent.
One other thing, are you aware of any problems with the system? I have heard one issue that they malfunction sometimes in severely cold weather. Have you heard any malfunctions with that?
And it's mine, of course the manufacturers will tell you that they're very reliable devices, but what they do is they build into the system that it doesn't really register until 0.02. So they've given some variance. So when you blow in, if you blow a 0.01, you're okay. It gives a variance up to 0.02.
Thank you, Representative Quinn. Appreciate you on
Thank you,
this
Mr. Pitts.
this particular bill.
Mr. King is recognized for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. First of all, I want to thank you, Mr. Quinn, for your work on this. I have a question for you in reference to people who may move into the state. Do we have something in place that will show their convictions when they go and apply for a driver's license in South Carolina?
It uses those as priors. So if you had a DUI in another state, you would, if like for example, it's your second offense, you would get the greater penalty. Okay. Under the ignition interlock bill.
And what stops a person, with me being in York County, and if they are crossing over the line into North Carolina, and if they're driving without the device, how are we keeping track of that person if they are subsequently stopped in North Carolina in a vehicle that does not have that device? I know we can't really control what happens in another state, but are we able to have a record that, or somewhere where it goes into the system?
Yeah, I mean, so presumably the policeman that would pull that person would see the interlock symbol on the driver's license, but quite frankly, that's, Senator Lurie said it best. We were talking about all the parades of things that could happen. And he said, and it was the most concise way I heard it, at some point you can only put so many locks on a door. Mm-hmm. And while there's no perfect law, this is the best attempt that we can come up with. But yes, there's circumstances like that we'll catch, but presumably the officer will see the ignition interlock symbol on the driver's license. And you may have issues where reciprocal laws, like for example, there may be some states where they don't have interlocked at all, and I don't know how that would. That's a tough call on how that would wash out.
Would the symbol be? Would it be could it be something that's written on there instead of a symbol that symbolizes that this person should not be driving? Would it be something on the back of the license that will say what the symbol means?
Yeah, all I can say is what I've seen from other states is, I don't know how DMV is going to handle it here, but one state I saw there was an interlock thing all the way top across the license. There was another state where I saw something on the back, but I think DMV is going to have to solve how that's done. Hopefully it'll be very clear.
Well, I wanted to applaud you for your efforts, and hopefully we can get this passed.
Thank you. And Chief Jenkins and the Longstreet families they're the ones that got this. I mean, that's the, I've got a little pass Emma's Law sign on my business, and I think that awareness of turning their tragedy, their personal tragedy, and the faith that it took for them to survive this and come up here and work day in and day out for as long as they have it's a testimony to God and their strength.
Ms. Wood is recognized for a question.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Representative Quinn, did you know that prior to my becoming a representative that I served as the executive director of SC Best?
I did not know that.
Yes, sir. And did you know that Ramona Longstreet Eubanks served and still serves on the SC Best board? and she is the aunt of Emma.
Well, I didn't know that connection to you. I tell you, that's been one of the pleasures of my life is getting to know that family, and I think, you know, they're just great people. You can tell that from the moment you meet them. And I think I just thank goodness that we have a texting package at my office that doesn't have any too many text messages, because Mr. Longstreet and I have been doing text at all hours, and it's been a real treasure to get to know them, and I call them my friends.
Absolutely, and we've prayed for Emma, and my sister has prayed with Ramona for Emma back when the tragedy happened. And I just want to thank you. I don't know that you know this, but do you know that I respect what you're doing, and I thank you for your effort, and I know it has been hard on the family, Ramona included, and I will be voting for passage of this bill. I fully support it, and I thank you for your efforts.
Thank you, Representative Wood. I appreciate that.
Mr. Murphy is recognized for a question.
Representative Quinn, thank you for your work on this bill. On a conviction of, there's two triggers basically for the interlock device that the committee put together. The first one we've talked about was for a conviction of .15 or greater, correct?
Correct.
And then as part of the process, we also added in there that if a person is convicted of DUI and after refusing the data master, that also triggers the mandatory interlock, correct?
That's correct. There is no loophole
So
for not taking the test.
So we added in also about with the refusal, correct?
Yes, sir. And hopefully that'll, you know, it's almost sad how you hear folks say, well, just never take the breathalyzer. Well, you know, there's going to be a penalty for that if they now, under this law, if we can get it done, there'll be a penalty for that.
And we also removed the ability of that individual that refuses the data master to obtain a provisional license, correct?
Correct. And you know, one of the other things we did is we added this appeals process. You know, so I talked earlier about the point system. You know, if you get over 4 points, you can actually appeal that and have some kind of hearing where you know there's a picture that's taken of your face when you blow into it. Well, you know, you just got a haircut and you want to go try to challenge them giving you that point system. So we've been fair, I think, in the committee amendment in terms of the administration of it and how it's going to function after the device is put on the car.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Williams recognized for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Representative Quinn, my question revolves around, you said PP would be actually regulating this?
Yes, sir.
Overseeing it. How much, in terms of the feed, in reference to, it's $100 fee for the license?
Yeah, I think I saw the average is like 136 or 135, I believe, per month. That's right. Yeah, and Mr. Talon, Representative Talon, just pointed out that $30 of this fee goes to indigent defense, so it's about $130 a month.
$130, mm-hmm. And the other 100 go back towards what?
Towards the administration of the program.
Okay, to defray any specific costs. Yeah. Will this particular fee go back to the administration to
yeah, and as I said earlier, the company installing a device really kind of does the work with the supervision of Triple P. So that fee is really to pay the company to, you know, put the device on, monitor it. They check it every 60 days to see, you know, how many times you've blown with alcohol in your breath. They check a device that takes your picture to make sure that you're the one blowing in the device. Those types of things. That's what that fee pays for, is to administer their expense.
Okay, what happened when that person that is licensed for that drive another vehicle or a non-commercial vehicle?
They would not be in compliance. Now, there are some ways that they can go to a judge and get some exceptions, but if you just go over drive another car, then you're not in compliance.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Wood.
Mr. Finley is recognized for a question.
Mr. Quinn, I just wanted to thank you on this. My question is for $900 for 6 months, it would prevent you from potentially getting a second DUI?
Well, yeah, and I'll be honest with you, if the young man that took young Emma from us, if this law had been in place, we would have had a shot at saving Emma and others. You know, Chief Jenkins very similarly, and his grandnephew.
Am I not thinking clearly that the first hour or two with your attorney on your second DUI is going to cost you more than $900?
Oh yeah, and I say the other thing too. One of the other things that's really encouraging about the interlock device is a diversion from that first offense person, because it seems, I think, going through the process and to be quite honest with you, some of the social stigma of having to get in your car and blow on that device every time you want to crank it up, those things lead to them a higher percentage of them not coming back for a second DUI. So it's worth that as well.
Did you know that very rarely I compliment you, but in this case I'm going to? Thank you.
Well, I know I'm doing good, Mr. Finley, if you're saying nice things about me.
Mr. Southers recognized for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Quinn,
Actually, Mr. Quinn, I'm afraid your second time on the amendment has expired. Pending question is adoption of the amendment. All in favor say aye. Thank you. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment is adopted.